IPv6 static routing with 4 methods of configuration. In this video, I'm going to talk about again static routing but in TCP IPv6. You know that in TCP IPv4 we can configure a static route with 3 methods: outgoing interface, next hop, and also outgoing and next hop IP address. In IPv6 also we have these 3 methods and one extra method, and that is using the link local address. We should consider special notes in using the link local address. I want to show you how we can use link local address as next hop, or for example an interface with outgoing interface with IP address of the link local address. Let's to start the scenario. We will learn many things, many options in the IPv6 static routing. As you can see in this scenario, we have 5 routers: router 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And also we have, for example, 4 serial links between the router 1, router 2, router 1, router 3, router 1, router 4, router 1, router 5. And now I want first configure this scenario, and then after initial configuration, I want to show you how you can configure static routes, static IPv6 routes in the, for example, our scenario. Let's start with the configuration of the R1. In R1, we have 5 interfaces: en, conft, hostname, R1. Don't forget, if you want to do any type of routing, for example, the static routing, dynamic routing in IPv6, you should enable IPv6 unicast routing. If you don't enable IPv6 unicast routing, you don't have any type of routing, static or dynamic. Because of that, the first command that we need to use is the IPv6 unicast routing. Okay, now we can start the configuration of the interface, IP addressing the IP address assignment to interfaces. For example, I start with interface ETH00. As you can see, we have IPv6 address of 2001 DB8 01 1/64, and then no shutdown. This is the IP address of the ETH00. Let me to copy this configuration for other 4 interfaces, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The interfaces label is serial 10. This is the serial 10, and then serial 11, and then serial 12, and finally serial 13. Okay. After that, we should change the IP addresses: 2001 12, 2001 12 1. That's it. And then 2001 13, because this links between router 1 and router 3, 1, then 3 1. And the next interface is 2001 DB8 14. Okay, 1 and then 4 1. And finally, as you can see here in this interface, in serial 13 interface, I don't want to use a link the global unicast address. Because of that, we should enable only IPv6 on this interface to have link local address. IPv6 enable is a command that we need to configure on serial 13. That's it. This is the initial configuration of the router 1. Let me to go to the router 2. This is the configuration of router 1, ETH00 and serial 10. We should copy this part and changing some values of that and copying and pasting in the router 2 CLI. This is the router 2's configuration. Host name is R2. Unicast routing now is enabled. And then ETH00's IP address is 2001 DB8 02 This is the IP address of the IPv6 address of the ETH00. And after that, for interface serial 10, I can use 2001 DB8 12 That's it. Let's go to the router 3. This is the router 3's configuration, initial configuration, hostname R3, then the ETH00's IP address 2001 DB8 03, then 3, and for the serial 10, 2001 DB8 13 3. That's it. Let's go to router 4. This is the router 4's configuration. R4 hostname R4 ETH00 2001 DB8 04 4. Okay, and then 2001 DB8 14 4. That's it. And finally, we have router 5. This is the router 5's configuration. Host name is router 5. Interface ETH00's IP address is 2001 DB805 :5. Okay, and then for serial 10, as I mentioned before, we should enable only IPv6. IPv6 enabled, that's it. This is the initial configuration of the R1, R2, R3, R4, and R5. Now we should copy the configuration of R1. This is the configuration of the R1, and then we should go to the CLI of the router 1. This is the CLI of router 1, and pasting the configuration of R1. Very good. Let's go to router 2. This is the configuration of router 2, copy, and then in the CLI of router 2, we should paste this configuration. After that, we should go to the router 3, copy, and then let's go to the router 3 CLI. This is the router 3 CLI. And after that, we should go to the router 4. This is the router 4, copy and pasting in the router 4 CLI. Okay. Finally, we have another router, R5. Copy the configuration and then pasting in the R5 CLI. That's it. This is the initial configuration. The first thing that we should check is the routing table in IPv6. Let me to check the IPv6 routing table. Show IP route is the command that we can use for checking the routing table of IPv4. For IPv6, it's so easy. You should use show IPv6 routes. So easy. Show IPv6 route is a route that we can check the routing table of IPv6 IPv6 routers. For example, in R1, I want to start from the R1. Show IPv6 route. As you can see in R1, we have the similar IPv6 routing table with the IPv4. Now we have connected networks 2001 DB801:/64. This network with the administrative distance of 0. You know that the directly connected administrative distance is 0. The first value is administrative distance, and the second value is the metric. You know that we don't use metric in the IPv6 because of the in the static routing, because of that, or connected, for example, networks. Because of that, we can't see any value for metric for connected or static routes. Now we understand this line 2001 DB801:/64 with the administrative distance of 0 and metric of 0 is directly connected to ETH00 of R1. That's it. This route is the local route, and I'm going to talk about the local routes in the future videos. You learn about the local routes. It's so easy and it's not relevant to our static routing. And after that, we have other connected network 2001 DB812:/64 with the AD of 0 and also metric of 0 connected to the serial 10. That's it. Again, 2001 DB813:/64 connected to serial 11. Again, 2001 DB814:/64 connected to the serial 12. And also we have a special route for FF00:/8 that in this part of class, the static routing, we don't need to talk about this feature. It's not relevant to our topics, but you can see only we have 1, 2, 3, 4 connected network. 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you see in a routing table of a router, we don't have any route for the link local addresses. Why? Because link local address doesn't appear in the routing table. Okay, because every link, every interface now has a link local address. Show IPv6 interface brief. Look at here. Every interface is ETH00, serial 10, serial 11, serial 12, and also serial 13 has one FE18 range link local address. Because of that, this range is available from all of these links. And finally, we don't have any specific route for the link local address in the routing table of the IPv6. This is the first note. The first note is that link local addresses does not appear in the routing table. Very good. Let's go to router 2. This is the router 2's routing table. Do show IPv6 route. As you can see, we have 2 connected networks in the router 2. And also in router 3, do show IPv6 route. Many things are same between IPv4 routing and IPv6 routing. Because of that, if you learn IPv4, you will learn IPv6. routing. And then this is the connected networks in the router tree, also